Let's start with how long it's been since the day you walked in
Sure.
to Gulf Breeze Recovery.
It has been 6 months since I was at Gulf Breeze Recovery.
Have they been a fast 6 months or a slow? Well, how's that 6 months?
I say it's been pretty slow, and the reason I say that is I think at Gulf Breeze Recovery is when I was able to tap into like slower thinking, slower living, taking it kind of moment by moment. So it's helped to kind of stay present in each day, kind of help to slow things down dramatically for myself, and kind of stay present in what I'm doing.
What do you see as the biggest difference between Colin after GBR versus Colin before GBR, other than the addiction?
Yeah.
What is it?
I would say the biggest would be my perception on life. I would also say my ability to trust others and trust myself. But the perception I say because for me, before I went into GBR, it was a very dark inner world that I had. The way that I showed up to everyday life was terrified and anxious and nervous all the time. And I know that I've spoken to this in the past, but it really was at GBR that I was able to wake up and I started feeling happy and just calm and collected and present. That was huge for me. And so the biggest change for me has been the perception, because my perception of life is what just changed all of it. It's my life. It's how I do show up to my everyday life and to my family and to friends and coworkers and stuff. So before it was I'd been told that I had a great smile, but I wasn't smiling on the inside. And that was huge for me, because I would like put on a great face all the time, but now it's like I feel that happiness, and that's what drives the rest.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Has it been challenged? Are there places where you were put to the test?
Absolutely, and there were. So I would say when you're at Gulf Breeze Recovery, it's the perfect place to really practice all that you're learning, and then you hit back to the real world. Hitting back at first, I say that all has changed, but really what's interesting is nothing outside of myself had changed. So I was showing up to a home situation, to my parents who hadn't changed. My sisters hadn't changed. I had. So it was interesting in the beginning because I kind of felt when I got out of Gulf Breeze Recovery that, everyone's going to understand this. They're going to understand the principles and that's not quite how it was. It was, I understood it, but then I had to apply that. And then I had to also check my ego to not change people to be the way that I wanted them to be. So I will say the biggest for me was actually probably when I got a job. So I actually now just took my first manager position I've ever had in my life. And I'm working at a beach resort as a guest experience manager. And so for me was finding the line between not even professional and friendly, but positive and negative. I mean, you really can show up, but you got to decide what conversations you'll be a part of, and all of that. And that's what was difficult for me, was really finding a line where I'm not, I'm kind of tiptoeing on either side. Like, I want to be friendly with others, but I also want to protect myself and the knowledge that I've learned. So that was difficult for me, but at the same time, I think it was showing up in those difficult moments is what changed. So like previous situations with family, especially where, we might get in an argument about something particular, you'd have two egos show up to the conversation. And it was really interesting to see when I just would allow myself to just kind of sit with my feelings or not respond, how drastic it changed. And really from my example helped change the situations instead of me telling people how the situations should be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now before, you would have had a job for a lot of different reasons.
Yes.
Okay? It was a means to an end.
Yes.
It was not about the job, it was about the drug job you could get because you had the money.
Yeah.
What's different about having a job?
So what's different about the job now than before, as we were discussing, is it's really the presence that I have showing up to the job. I mean, before I was always ahead of myself, where is this going to go? Where is my life heading? I'm not happy with this moment, or I was stuck in the past. So now that I've really recaptured that part of myself, life has slowed down in the sense that I see the due diligence that needs to be done in a job. I see that you need a job to pay the bills, and I need a job to live. And my life had kind of exploded, as we know, before I got to Gulf Breeze Recovery. I went in there without a job and I was broke. And so to be regaining all of that it's just a great practice for me, because now what's great too is it's kind of also added on to like a spiritual practice for me, like everything kind of has in this way. So it's kind of like looking at the everyday challenges at a job. As far as the day-to-day for me is just exciting. It's like, how do I deal with this now that I'm present? So as you mentioned, like what is interesting about being a guest experience manager, it's my job to ensure that they're happy. So it's a great daily practice of what we're taught with the knowledge at GBR, because life is happy, life is love, life is all of these things, but it's how you show up to the situation. So especially when you have a guest who is not having a good time, or it's a great way to kind of maneuver through your words, really, and your actions. How do you show up and change that experience for them? And it's been great. I mean, honest to God, I don't know if it's the South or if it's just hospitality in general, but people are very kind. And I even found that in my coworkers, we're all very similar kind of individuals. Like, I think it takes a certain type of individual to be able to be the front desk and receiving all of these guests into a resort. So it's exciting, and it's interesting to see for those that have more of a difficult time. That's another thing, is the presence that I have now from Gulf Breeze Recovery, is seeing where that is, and seeing when people are stuck with awareness, like their awareness is here instead of here. So it's just been a great practice for me to continue that, and really continue to check my ego a lot. So I think that was another thing, is you ask about getting out of recovery, and you think, I'm going to have it 100% of the time. And that's like not the case at all. But it's okay, it's good, it's a lot better. My life's so much better than it was before. There is a different quality to the people I attract, specifically even that I decide who are in my life. So as I went into Gulf Breeze Recovery, I was feeling very abandoned, very alone, very lost, confused. And when I got out, I felt actually kind of blessed that I felt so kind of abandoned and lost and confused, because it's given me the chance to rebuild. And I've scratched it all, just thrown it all out, let's redo it. So I started, the most important to me to rebuild was my family relationships. And that's been great. So like you said, I had my sisters come in town about a month after I got out, which was great. And being around my family here, my parents, and rebuilding that. But then outside of that, yeah, it's me choosing who I'll have. And the quality, really, I chose a lot of it from people I knew at Gulf Breeze Recovery. So I've chosen to kind of stick with them, stick with those that I met through the program, either helping, while I was there, or, afterwards, as we have our group chats, we really it's a family. We've all gotten pretty close to each other. So I really look forward to those meetings that we have every Monday. And when I can make it now. But so I would say that for me with that, yeah, it's focusing on what type of people I have. And I can sense that better. I'm very intuitive now. All right, well, always was, but I didn't use it as a gift. So if I can start to sense that there's something that just, maybe doesn't match the same vibration, then, we go back and meditate at home. Right? What
do the Monday meetings do, the calls? It's great, there's a touch, there's an aftercare. What does it do for you?
It helps remind me of what we learned. It helps me to feel connected to others, very much so. Because I think one thing you'll find when you're going through the program is this knowledge is not shared with all, on a mass level. And yeah, we can start getting the message out, but we're still it's still like pretty small. So I think for me, it's the connection with others. It's also the stories and knowing that, reminding myself that when I'm feeling in a low mood, I'm not the only one, or it's not just because of what I'm having in my life. Somebody might have the same situation in a different context. So to then provide either support or get support provided is just excellent on those calls.
I'm in good shape.
You're in good
Okay.
shape. So we're talking about the friends
Yeah.
who, whether they're really friends or not.
Yeah. While away at recovery, you have a lot of time to ask yourself a lot of questions about your relationships, about who you trust, who you've allowed in your life. And I think what's interesting is you come to find out that they're in the human experience and conditions, everyone has good and bad. So, you can bulk up a bunch to like, oh, this is a good friend, but is this the right friend? Is, I guess, the question that you have to ask yourself. So for me, that was I guess another thing I didn't speak of earlier that was a difficult transition coming out as far as feeling alone, was a lot of my friends weren't there when I got out. And it wasn't even friends that I had met through the party scene and drinking and doing drugs. It was even some other friends that were just, I think, maybe kind of uncomfortable with, how do I speak to you now that you've gone through this, and who are you now? And people are sensitive to that. So it's been an interesting journey to go back and kind of indulge myself into those relationships. So for some, I've had to just go ahead and close that door, move on. Others, I've allowed to like ask questions, because some are very curious. Some, especially the ones that I was using with, are, well, how is life now, or blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. But there are some out there that, you need, what's great is you recapture yourself at Gulf Breeze Recovery, okay? So I feel like you understand that life is about choices, and your choices as well in that. And so it's nothing to necessarily fear, but you need to remind yourself that daily, because others are going to test you. Others are going to test your strength and your ability. So that's why a lot of the holistic healing techniques that they use, like the yoga for me and the meditation every day, helps me to keep out of my thoughts and my mind, but also helps me to keep grounded in where I'm at now, because I am in somewhere different. So, if you feel, people say like, you're so kind to say like, we're celebrating the new you. And that's something that I carry with me every day. I had an opportunity when I left Gulf Breeze Recovery to restart my life. And you always do. I mean, even outside of recovery, but if I took a big risk, deciding to go away. I didn't know what I'd find. I didn't know what would be there. But to know that not only were the answers there, but I was given kind of a clean slate to start again, why would I not give that 110%? So with the people that, you'll find it's just some of those people you need to let go. Your interests are not their interests, or your best interests are not their best interests. They're not interested in seeing you well. They want to see, that old part of yourself possibly come out, and then they'll feel better about why they're falling or why they're not doing well with their lives.
Tell me where you are as far as addiction and how it applies to you.
My feelings on addiction now are very much different than they were prior to going to Gulf Breeze Recovery. One thing that I came across was, in this life we love to use labels to describe situations, but there's something deeper to all of us that you cannot label. You cannot describe me. You can throw my name on me, and there's still me that exists if I didn't have my name. So that's an excellent question as far as my thoughts towards addiction and towards, is it a disease? Do I feel like that? Absolutely not. And I'm very, very, very confident in that statement, because I do feel that I was at dis-ease. My body, my mind were at dis-ease, but it was not a disease. And I think that's huge triumph in my life, because prior to Gulf Breeze Recovery, those were the thoughts that I had. I'm a failure. I am an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. And what life do you have when you feel like that? I mean, it was depressing. It was really sad. And so I've already lived that life. And what I loved about Gulf Breeze Recovery and the program and the faculty were that the minute you walked in, you weren't diseased, you weren't broken. They saw that innate health within you, and they helped you to bring that back out. So I'm also very, very cautious about the words that I use to describe it. Like much like you just said, I will say that I was at dis-ease. I will say that I was abusing, possibly, but even the word addict I've taken out of my vocabulary. And that's been a beautiful thing, because as we spoke to about while I was still away, on my spiritual practice, one of the big things is, I go to this crystal, I love crystals, and I've met some beautiful people, even just stopping by at the store. And I remember speaking to one of them last time I was there about Gulf Breeze recovery, and my journey, and where I'm at now. And I used that word. I was like, I used to be an addict. She was like, don't ever say that about yourself again. And I just thought that was such a beautiful statement from somebody completely even outside of Gulf Breeze recovery, understanding that life, we have moments, and we have moments that are, difficult, but don't label yourself as those things. You're something greater. Learning to live in the present, that doesn't mean that you're always going to be in the present. So those times that I now will rewind on my life, there's some times where you look back and you're like, oh, it's almost difficult to describe that too, because I feel like for myself, I've asked other people who've gone through recovery, or also even not Gulf Breeze recovery, but are sober. I'm like, do you remember like what it was like before? And a lot of them I'll say it's hard to describe because it's a feeling, but it's like I don't remember those feelings even anymore. So that's much of the I know that people can say transformation, but I really feel like it's recapturing. It's not like Colin changed completely when he got out of recovery. It's more that I lead with my best self, my higher self, as I call it. Yeah, you realize that you're on the right path, and for myself, I was able to notice the moment I went off the wrong path. And yeah, it's been a long road. That was 17 years I decided to stay on that path for myself. But to know that I was onto something then, it's almost like that's what I'm recapturing. And when I say recapturing, that's what I'm recapturing now. I've gone back to almost that point where, all right, well, let's give this another shot, And so I'm very blessed in that. Very blessed that my family has given me that opportunity as well. Because it's, a lot of that is like, a lot of the times when you are coming out of this, or going into this, it's not just your actions. Like, your actions affected other people. And as much as I did feel like I wasn't affecting other people, I was breaking my mother's heart, and my father's heart, and my sister's. And, when you have to take responsibility for all of that as well. So to be given this chance, I don't know, it feels great to have that opportunity again. The 12 steps work it's a program that works. You just described why it doesn't work for others. I, for some reason, could never wrap my head around that I'm powerless. Like, there was something, at least maybe because I'd been through enough struggles where I had come out of them. How could I not overcome this kind of thing? I just couldn't understand that I was powerless, that there was something controlling my experience. Because for me, when I was in the 12-step model, I guess it kind of just terrified me, because like some people would say like I'm powerless, and then they would continue to have struggles, and I just felt like at the same time there was others that didn't, and I'm like, well, what's the difference there? Because that's where there's wisdom in anything, right? There's wisdom in all programs and any recovery. So those people, I believe, were able to capture that essence of you are that power, you're able to recover yourself. So that's what I recaptured at Gulf Breeze recovery, was that understanding, like, oh, this is my decision, and I do make my own decisions every day. Another thing about it was there had to be a better way to feel sober, right? Like, I didn't want to be sober and miserable. I didn't want to go, and that's, we speak to the striving to thriving. Like, there are moments, of course, where I think, well, what's a beer, right? Or what's a cigarette even? I quit smoking, but then there's always a pause. There's always a second that you can also think, well, what else am I giving up? What else have I given up? And so for me, with that, when I could have a drink, and that I've decided to go on a different path, like you discussed, and and when I feel like those are really heavy, that's what's great about programs like 12-step or even the Gulf Breeze recovery meetings, because then I have my friends to be like, well, wait, I knew you when you were thinking this, or also share I've been their struggles. I mean, a lot of my strength has come from the sharing that we've all shared of each other's struggles. Like, I have certain friends who have been to multiple recovery programs who tell me of transfer of addiction. So yeah, maybe your problem wasn't alcohol, but it turned into it when you got out. You know, and so just for me, knowing that I could easily my ego could trick me back into a pattern that I'm on a different path. So that does come up, because when you're on such a different path and you don't know what's ahead.
But you've also participated in Gulf Breeze in different ways, and talk about what that has meant to you.
Sure.
To speak there, to go.
Yeah, that a major thing for me. So if I couldn't come back and preach the principles to my family and loved ones,
Yes.
then you better believe I was going to go back to GBR and do it there. So it's a great part of of Gulf Breeze recovery that I love to share with everyone. Is much like you start to realize while you're away, is you have a choice that these people can be your family. You really do. Everyone on that staff is so supportive of you. They want you to recover. They want you to do well. So it's really great when you also reciprocate that back to them. Like, it's time to show that love back to them and show them how the program has worked and how they have helped you. So it was an honor, to have them start to have us come back. So I was able to speak. Towards the beginning of October was my first time telling my full story. I was nervous as hell because it was a full story. So you're up on that chair speaking to the new graduates or new class for like an hour and a half. I was like, how am I gonna do this for an hour and a half? But it went great, and I think also was remembering in that moment, being sitting in the chair in front of the classroom, was remembering I had just 3 months prior been the one sitting down, listen to other graduates speak. So that was, in the sense, like I say, honor, because I remember looking at them like, oh my gosh, like I really, not even hope, I look forward to, if he's done it, I can do it. If she's done it, I can do it. And so to get some of the questions back also from the newer classes is really great. And that's another great way for me to keep reflective on this new path that I'm on, because I'm like, oh yeah, I never thought of it this way, or I do remember feeling that, or I do remember that question when I was here at Gulf Breeze Recovery. And then outside of that, the principals, there's been, they're starting to pick up some traction. So they had one of their first East Coast conference in Charlottesville, Virginia. And so Gulf Breeze Recovery was there to speak on the addiction track, and it was an honor to go there and hear Barnett and others speak to the program and to the stats of how well it's worked, and then also for us to share our story. And I've gotten much closer with Kat, as we know and love. So it was really great. Every time to see these friends of yours, and she was another one that I was looking up to when I was going through the program. She was one that I was like, I remember she sat down to help me with my paperwork the first day I was there, terrified. And then she just slightly mentioned on the side that she was in the program a year ago. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, we got this then. Just a beautiful, she's just glowing with her health. So, and then to know her story and for her to be so brave and sharing it as well was great. So for me, it's been great to start on that. And that's another thing that I guess is you choose things differently. You choose different interests. And so for myself, what am I gonna do differently? What are my interests? And outside of my spiritual practice is preaching this with others and sharing it, and also learning more through others, because there's still a lot to learn. That's what is most exciting, is you get the base kind of knowledge at GBR, but then it's applying it for the rest of your life. So.
Did you see any mini Collinses when you were up there talking? Did you see any yous from 4 or 5 months ago sitting there
Yeah, I did. I think what's funny, yeah, I did. There was one, he was asking very specific questions. There's a graduate, or soon-to-be graduate, asking very specific questions to me that almost caught me off guard too. I was like, Oh wait, what's it? And I just remember, what was interesting was Anthony also was in the audience at that one. And what was interesting was him remembering me while he was giving his speech. And I was in the audience, and he's like, I remember you saying, you were like specific, you were like, what was your truth? He's like, I should have known it then. He's like, hearing your story now, I see you were so invested in this, and you were looking for your own truth, and you found it. So that was really exciting, because then it gave me this understanding that, yeah, that's what we're looking for. And what's my truth is different than your truth, possibly, but you can apply it to all. That's what. And so when we hear those stories, that's what I'm reminded of. And because at some point you also, it's interesting because, you know, that my life story, and as you all know, and my family there knows, that's saved for those people. That is saved for those that have felt that run down and that disconnected, I guess. But you're right. I mean, that's and also when they first arrived. I mean, we were both different. Like Kat had 4 word vocabulary, you know, all cuss words. Mine was more just, I'll be nice to everyone, stay out of my face, you know. But we were both terrified.
Big question when we did your first interview was how will you have fun? Because fun was defined by outside influences that attributed to you being able to have more fun, feeling more comfortable socially with a little drink and whatever it did that got you. How about the fun now? Is that true? Were you right when you were talking to us? Is it different? Tell me what fun looks like.
It's actually very much the same. My fun is discovering myself more each day and I've become my own best friend. I've become my own savior. I've become the only person that needs to be relied on is myself for me. So, and that's in the most selfless way. Like it's not like, oh, it's me and I don't care about other people. It's what are my interests? What knowledge is there to be had? I mean, Goal-Free Recovery helped me realize, you know, how much we don't have much time on this earth, right, in this life, and I have so much to discover. I have so much to learn. So I've been able to apply that, but also slow down and like, what are my interests, you know, and what is important to me? What was important to me that I was missing when I was away? My family, number one. So to have this time with them, but also like my spiritual practice has become huge. So I love reading about, you know, meditations and the different dimensions. I mean, it's just like my consciousness is just like expanded within all of that. And also just, I guess, just looking forward to what's to come. So like, you know, for right now, it's kind of, I feel like this is a launch pad for the next adventure. So it's this part of it is for me practicing it more in real life, right? So that for my next adventure, it'll be solidified. Because there's still a lot of practices, even at work, where I'll see slips, and that's life, you know, we're not gonna get it right 100% of the time. But I'm a lot better at that than I was before. You know, I would say I'm 90%. Before I was maybe a 75. Like, you know what I mean? No, so, you know, I can just be more aware and present in that. So the fun is had with art. Like a lot of the same things I was doing. I do art is one thing I love to do. Exercising is another. And I guess, like I said, before it was like I had to have all of this figured out. And now it's like, have a good day, you know and then the day goes by so fast, and you're like, by the time that you're done reading a few chapters of a book, catching up on your TV shows on your day off, like your day is kind of gone. So
what are you reading right now?
So right now I'm reading one called Creatures for a Day, and it's a book that was actually recommended by Dolph, who was one of the counselors at Goal-Free Recovery, and it's on psychotherapy, and this psychologist, his personal stories with his clients, some of the like more exciting stories. And since I'm looking to possibly go back to school for psychology, and I'm like interested in it, it's great. And then I'm also reading Alchemy of the Nine Dimensions, which I'm sure you would like as well. It's meditation book that helps you to connect with different levels of awareness and consciousness through different meditative practices. So I'm reading that.
Talk to me about the other people in your class. Are some doing well and some not?
That's a great question. That was difficult, that was a difficult reality of awareness when you got out, is that we're all on our own path. And, I kind of, in my personal, what I like to believe is our souls are on different journeys and they're experiencing different things at different times. I know that for me, it just kind of, the synchronicity of Gulf Breeze recovery kind of went hand in hand with what I was learning universally. So as far as others, I've noticed that there are some that are doing well and some that are doing as well as they had anticipated. But what I like about both situations, whether they know it or not with those that have struggled since, is that they're using their awareness about it. So without them even, and so I'd like to bring that out when we talk. So, and I still speak to a lot of those that I was with, and I'll always remind them. They'll say, well, this happened, but then I realized that I was thinking this when that, and I was like, well, that's already a difference. So I think what's great about the recovery is you'll find a lot of people are doing very well. For those that aren't, either they'll take two paths a lot of the times for the Gulf Breeze recovery. Either they'll come back for a second, kind of shorter term, or it just kind of clicks. The principles click. So a lot of times, like when I'm very much practicing the non-judgment now of any situation. You can only love others, and if you can't be in their lives, then you can support them by sending out, the best vibes to them. So for those that are more struggling, I know that it's interesting because it's like they connected on a deeper level than they even realize. It's just a matter of tapping into that when they're feeling those struggles.
Yeah, I think that's whereas if you're thinking that you have no control, then you can just give in.
Right, absolutely. And I think that was important for me too, was there's so many dualities in life, right? So for me, it was understanding that I was perceiving these situations based on my own experience. I speak a lot to earlier this year, having had that epiphany, awakening of body and soul, and so I had that kind of understanding a bit when I came into Gulf Breeze recovery. It was more about sorting out the thoughts and realizing that, my thoughts aren't even reality. I can choose which ones are, but a thought doesn't make that true. So that was like, that was a whole day of processing that one. But I think what I'll find is, either way, what I love is that we all care for each other deeply. And I really feel like it's a family that I met there, So a quote that I love that I've shared since recovery too is, you keep waiting on somebody, right? You keep on waiting somebody to save you. You keep on waiting for somebody to make it better. You keep waiting on somebody to show you the way. And then you realize that you are that somebody. It's you. So that was like a huge moment for me, away. I had placed my responsibility for my health and my happiness in others my entire life. I was at dis-ease, so outside in, this person will make me happy. This relationship will be the one. And not showing up at all for myself in those relationships, not showing up for what I'd stand for and what I believe in. So since recovery, I am single. Celibate, I'm figuring out my life kind of thing, and I'm ready, and I'm open to that. I do find that, as we were discussing, I don't have a lot of time. So it's like, I'm enjoying myself so much, and I'm enjoying how life has turned out that, unless you're enhancing my life, I don't have the time. And I don't need others to do so. So it's been great though as well. I know that we spoke about this while I was at Gulf Breeze recovery. One of the loves of my life was a devastating loss for me that led me darker down a path just because of the pain I felt inside. Not necessarily now towards the individual. So we are still talking, and it's been great because what I learned in that is that love is unconditional and love exists in everything. So I felt that for me, I had perceived and thought that there wasn't love between us, but there always will be. And so no matter where we're at, no matter if we're together or separated, I'm learning that unconditional love for others through that experience as well. Forgiveness is one of my main practices now that I'm doing, and also realizing what is forgiveness. So forgiveness for each of us is more for yourself than it is the other person. You need to forgive to move on. But that's a great question because it's a difficult one for me. So I've been able to, I think one of the harder ones is forgiving myself. But I was blessed by one of the counselors at Gulf Breeze Recovery. We did a beautiful forgiveness meditation my last day there, where it was picturing myself in front of me sitting in a chair, and I forgive, I'm sorry and I forgive you. And this is a beautiful kind of message. So that I practice that daily. I would say there was a betrayal in my personal life right before I left, where I had gone seeking solace and compassion in another friend who I thought would really be able to understand that I had, tripped up and I was, terrified. And it didn't work out that way. Now, bringing awareness to that situation, I can understand they were terrified themselves, going through their own problems in life where their thoughts just clouded the whole situation. But that's been the most difficult, and I've realized that I bring compassion to myself that I'm not ready to forgive that. That isn't, I don't need to have everything figured out today or yesterday or tomorrow. That I can bring awareness to it and know that in itself kind of releases it more and more. But then also realizing, having recaptured myself, how important it is to show up for myself first and actually letting people go. And that's a difficult life lesson, because I feel like part of your spiritual practice say, forgive all. But then you realize you can still forgive someone and move on with your life. I was a victim going into Gulf Breeze Recovery. It was, this happened to me, so this, then this happened. It's your fault. You need to be able to bring awareness to your responsibility for yourself. That you, no matter how much you felt that decision lied in somebody else, or some situation where you always had a choice. So that's why when we speak to outpatient recovery programs and inpatient, I'm very, and it's my personal experience, but I'm very, very much about the inpatient. Not necessarily because of anything other than 9 weeks away, I say the extra week, but 9 weeks away from this, from the noise, from relationships, gave me the proper tools to rebuild Colin. Like, I needed to find myself, I needed to begin to forgive myself, and I needed to start trusting myself again. I had made so many decisions that were against my true self that it was almost like I was having to reconnect with myself and lead myself back through recovery. So why I say inpatient or in-house is because there's a lot of ugly moments too. And that's just life. I mean, you're always going to have things that you're going to have to face. And I'm happy I faced them away. I'm a very private person, as much as I can, there was a lot of things that people they don't see the struggle, they don't see that. But having the 8-9 weeks was excellent for me to get to those points, have the counselors there to help you realize these, maybe where you're hitting roadblocks, get around those roadblocks, reconnect with my family. I was blessed to have them able to come, and we had some in-group sessions, and then practice it. I mean, and it's funny because even now, 4 months out, I look back and I'm like, oh, there was so much I was doing. Like, I was so outward, and I was, that person's messing up, so we got, you got to figure out your stuff so that everything's fine. And there's just so little things that you look back on, and that's what I guess is the joy in it all, though, is knowing that I no longer care to be perfect. There's the gifts of imperfection, right? There's the gifts in knowing that you can always improve who you are. But that I got to really start that at Gulf Breeze Recovery. I think my mother said it best, as always. My mom's a pretty intelligent woman. while I was in recovery and we were having some of these family discussions, one thing that she wanted to remind me of is that your parents aren't perfect either. We're human. So was like a big light bulb off in my head, because my mom did such a good job as a kid that I've always looked up to my parents, especially my mom, as just the epitome of perfection. You know, she's just anything that's good in my character comes from my mother. So I found that very interesting while away. So when I got out of recovery, it's more about people showing up. I see my mother and father both in a different light. I bring awareness to, I can understand in using techniques like separate realities, how based on 3 different life experiences, and the beauty of that we're all here. I mean, yes, these are my parents, but my mom had a different childhood than my father did. They have different ways of raising their children. They have different ways of looking at life. And then I had my own life experience. So what's been great about being back is I do know, having done the work at Gulf Breeze Recovery, that I turned off at around age 12, 13 from my family. So what they thought was a teenager acting out was just really me turning off. Feeling very afraid and alone and abandoned and all of these things that I created that reality. So it's been great because now I'm back. So, and nobody knows you better than your parents. So I know that they're not only so supportive of me, but they're just like in awe of even that. Because I think then also it's not that even I'm back, I'm back and I'm an adult. I'm not, I'm not sitting here starting, ridiculous fights over something with my dad because it's an ego meeting an ego. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I think the father-son relationships are some of the funniest, because there are those feelings. I don't know what it is sometimes, but I'm in control of that now. And so it really has been a joy. I mean, I joke with them that I'm playing the long game out of my siblings. So I'm at home playing the long game, and now it's become the name of the house. So I don't know if you saw that driving in, but it's the long game. This is now the name of the property. So it's just funny little jokes like that, and like I said, perception of what it is. People can say anything they want, even to me, about, you're 30 years old and you're living at home. How pathetic, how sad. Say what you will. It's my launch pad, and I'm rebuilding my life with my family. So it's pretty great. About 3 weeks in, it was Mother's Day, and that was a big deal for me, because as we know before and during this as well, my relationship with my mother has always been one of the most important relationships in my life. So it was a big deal for me, and I remember my father looking at me while we were sitting outside of Gulf Breeze Recovery, and he just said, he looked at my eyes and he's like, someone's back, you're back. And that meant a lot to me, because I was about 3 weeks in. I'd gotten really quiet. You get in and you're reacting to everything, and this is all new, and then you slow down. And so for him to be like, you're back online, was really inspiring for even me to hear that. But it was great that they saw it, because then it justified the feeling that I was having, that I was understanding it greater. When you do a review of the past, because people say, well, what has changed about you? Because Kat and I were having this conversation, because Kat and I both, on the spiritual level, both just as people, we're not very confrontational people. So to be honest, that was one of the greatest gifts that I had when I was away, because I didn't have much to work with on my ego on that regard to life. My opinion about you or anyone else does not matter. It might be, I can use it for my own judgment and call, but it's not for me to share that. So when I share that, because a lot of people, I guess, the interesting thing is, since I've gotten out, there's a lot of people that just see my life from Facebook or other things that I've met throughout the years that I've been moving around. And everyone keeps saying the same thing, where they're like, oh, you look so happy. And I just find that interesting, because, on social medias especially, you're always showing the best. Or you're trying to capture the best life. But to be sharing, in seeing the photos and seeing that my smile is back, my genuine smile is back. And knowing that I do And anything that I'm sharing, yeah, that is the best parts of my life. But so is the rest of it, really, now. You know, I was really able to, it's like, you know, taking off another layer of skin. It's just like renewed. It's just like, I have a new chance. So yeah, I'm happy because I've left all of that behind and I am here full time. So you're correct in that the difficult part from the past was, yeah, what I was doing is not who I am. You know, but it was great to like recapture that and realize, oh, I was on, you know, I'm on the right path. I was on the right path with how to treat others, you know, because that's how you treat yourself and then how you treat others. So.
And I've been with guests where they're in the room and their mom or dad for the first time is describing in their presence what it felt like to be as scared as they were, and you can tell.
Oh, and that's something to talk about because I had that first experience at the conference, Three Principles conference. We had myself, Kat, speak, but then we had her name was Jeannie. Her son went through the program last year, and so I went first. Made her cry from a mother-son perspective. She goes, makes me cry from a mother-son. Because what she realized in my story, much like her with her son, is that she just, like my mom said this to me too, she knew at a young age, you know, moms know what's best, that I just went offline. Something, she didn't know what it was. I wasn't, you know, but something had taken a hold of me. And she said the same thing happened to her son. And it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't reality. It wasn't, but it created a dark reality for the kids and for the parents. So to hear like, yeah, it just made me cry from that point of view. I mean, I know I have my personal conversations with my parents on that, and also what's been beautiful is it's also like having left it behind. I don't know how else to say that. I think, but that's shown in how I've showed up to life since. I understand that a lot of that has to do with how I show up to this conversation now. I mean, I'm always open to whatever they'd like to discuss with me. It's the same with my sisters if there's ever that conversation we need to have. But it's been kind of a great to see that because of my actions, a lot of that doesn't have to be discussed. For those that are like just afraid going into it, it's just, you know, you're going to have to give up things. I mean, obviously give up things, but they say something about like changing something in your daily routine. And so I thought about that when I was away, and I was like changing things in my daily routine. One was smoking. I hadn't been working out. I didn't work out. And just like, what's great though is people were always wondering like, how am I going to do this? Just find other interests, like find other things to do. I'm just as busy as I was, busier than I was before. I don't know how I had time for things in the past. Like, I'm just seriously like, after this, it's going to be probably around noon. I'll be like, all right, well, got 2 hours to go to the beach, and then I got to go back and eat dinner and then go to bed for work tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy to me, but I'm so blessed by Go Freeze. What's great about this is there was a time I think I spoke to you guys in my first video where I was home before Chicago, after San Francisco. Completely different experience. And so like that just shows me so much about what we can learn in life. Mm-hmm. You know, when you get sober and when you really take those harder looks, because it's like, well, what is the only thing that's changed is myself.